I don't know where everybody else is at, but I'm glad you're here. It is summertime. I told Brother Brad before service, I said, we shipped off like 40-something kids to camp this morning. I said, I think all the moms and dads got all those kids sent off to camp, and then they're like, woo, free night. So, no, we've got a large group at camp, and I was actually supposed to be there this week. That's why I had scheduled Brother Brad to speak again. But they had too many volunteers, and so I unvolunteered. They needed somebody to unvolunteer, and my hand went up first. I love camp, but I spent all week there last week, and I said I love it a lot. I just don't know if I love it 2 weeks in a row a lot. No, I could have handled it, but I wanted to let somebody else have an opportunity. That's just the kind of guy I am. So, yeah. Oh, goodness. Hey, I love you. I'm glad you're here tonight, and I believe we're in for a treat. Missed last week, so I'm looking forward to hearing Brother Brad Kingsriter tonight. I love this couple, this family. I'm so thankful that the Lord brought them to us. They've already been such a blessing, and so if you will, just give him your full attention. I'm going to turn it over to Brother Brad, and I think you know him. He's spoken a couple of times now, so.
Thank you, Pastor David. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to share tonight and the privilege that it is to do that. So, last week I said if you don't like what you hear, you may not come back this week, and I think some people took me up on it. I don't know. But anyway, I think it is being live streamed, maybe, possibly. All right, so maybe people will watch it online and be able to get it. But did everybody get the handout that was on the back tables? There's a handout on the back table there if you want it. Help you take some notes. We were talking about camp. My son, when he was starting to go to camp, they volunteered me. I was pastoring, and I was not the kids pastor. I wasn't the youth pastor. But they volunteered me to go and be the camp counselor for his group of boys. And I was telling Pastor David, I said, one of the times that I went, I was sleeping on the floor on a mattress, and they had bunk beds in the cabin, and one of the boys was on the top bunk. He literally fell off and landed on top of me in the middle of the night, and he didn't wake up. Like, how does that happen? How do you not wake up falling like that? And then another time, we were in a different cabin, and one of the other groups that came had brought lice with them. They brought a gift. Thankfully, we were like right across the hall from them, but we never got it, thankfully. But camp experiences, there's always a story, isn't there? I want to read 3 verses to you just to start off. Actually, I'm sorry. I will tell you. I'll let you know when. I'm going to get to those shortly. So last week, if you were here, I talked about emotional healing, and that we have choices to make in our relationships that can either hurt or heal our emotional selves. And tonight I want to talk about healthy, deep relationships, or what should that really look like, especially from a Christian's perspective. But before I get to that, I want to briefly look back at a study I did a number of months ago, the first time. I don't know if it was like November or something like that last year. I spoke on a Wednesday night about the hole in the heart. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I spoke on the hole in the heart, that there are different things that we need in our hearts to live fulfilling lives. And this is not necessarily an exhaustive list that I gave you, but we do feel that these are maybe the most common that we see, are the most important. And I had God, we had a healthy view of self, we had family, we had friends, we had gifts and purposes, and emotional control. And again, there can be other things, but these are like our top ones. Now, as I mentioned, all of these are important, but the most important would be what? What do you think? You're going to have to help me tonight. God. Our relationship with God is the most important. But if you're here and you remember, I said there was another one that was the most immediate need that we can have. Does anybody remember what that one was? Nobody? Family. Family is the most immediate need. God, our relationship with God is the most important need. Why is family the most immediate need? Because our family can influence all these other things. Our family can influence our relationship with God. Our family can influence how we view ourselves, how we interact with family, what kind of friends we have. Our family can influence all these different things. So that is the most immediate need that we have as individuals. So, I'm sorry, I had to go old school tonight because I forgot my iPad at home. And so when I was putting the final touches this morning in my office, I was like, oh, I'm just have to print this off, I guess, Haven't had to do that for a while. So, for good or bad, our family can influence us, can't they? And family can influence how we interact with other people, right? And they can influence our relationships with family, with friends, etc. And I just briefly touched on the arrows that we can have in our hearts. Arrows are the hurts, the traumas, the wounds that we receive in life. Sometimes from others, sometimes from events that we experience, like just as an example, maybe a car accident or something like that. They all contribute to how I feel about myself and how I feel and interact with other people. Because if those hurts, if those traumas, if those wounds come from other people, guess what? It's going to affect how I interact with not just those individuals, but other people as well. And these hurts, these traumas, these wounds affect the core of my being, my identity, and they can cause really severe damage and pain and confusion in our lives. And we see this, I see this on a daily basis with the guys that I work with at Capstone. And, it's just, some of the stories I could tell you are just heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. And these are young men, that come to see us. But when this happens, when we experience these hurts, these traumas, these wounds, we can often look to other things to try and fill the holes, God, healthy sense of self, family, friends, etc. We can try to find other things to fill those holes, such as alcohol and drugs and sex, pornography, etc. Literally, it could be anything. It's an endless list. And that kind of leads me up to what I want to talk about tonight, the healthy, deep relationships. So here are the scriptures that I want to read to you tonight. In 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 17, it says, "And Jonathan made David reaffirm his vow of friendship again." And this is the main part I want to focus on. "For Jonathan loved David as he loved himself." For Jonathan loved David as he loved himself. And then in Proverbs chapter 24, verse 26, "An honest answer is like the kiss of friendship." Now think about that for a moment. An honest answer is like the kiss of friendship. I'm going to focus on that a little bit later on, but I want you to think about an honest answer. Sometimes we don't like an honest answer, do we? But it's what we need to hear, isn't it? Truly. And then the last scripture in James chapter 2, verse 8, "Yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures, love your neighbor as yourself." Love your neighbor as yourself. So when I'm talking about healthy relationships, please understand that I am not talking about casual relationships, like with the person, at the checkout counter at the store. Of course, at Walmart, everybody checks themselves out now, but we're not talking about, the person that you meet, just whatever. We're not talking about these casual, we're talking about close relationships, okay? And this will make more sense as I go along. But one of the first things I want to talk about is this: transparency versus vulnerability. Transparency versus vulnerability. Transparency is when I share something with you that you don't know about me. I'm being transparent with you. And vulnerability is very similar to this, except we just go a little bit deeper, and I can share something with you that, yeah, you still don't know this about me, but guess what? You could potentially use this against me. That's being truly vulnerable. We can be transparent with a lot of people. We can't always be vulnerable with everybody, though, can we? We just can't. And so we have to be careful. And we talk about this, with our guys, that we want them to be vulnerable. We want them to be transparent, but we want them to do it incrementally. We want them to do it a step at a time. Just share a little bit about your story. Don't just blurt out everything all at once. And how many times, I don't want to see a show of hands here, but how many times have you done that? You meet somebody and you really like them and you want to get to know them and you just blurt it all. And what do? They go the other direction. So we have to be careful with this. All right? So, but here's the thing. If I'm not willing to be vulnerable, which is the deepest layer, if I'm not willing to be vulnerable with somebody else, I cannot grow in that relationship. I can't. I have to be willing to be vulnerable with them. And that leads me to the handout that you have. What does this look like to you? Looks like a bullseye, I hear. A target. Anybody else? A tunnel? Okay. Anybody else? Just yell it out. Huh? I can't hear you. Like I said, when I do Bible studies, I enjoy interaction with you guys. I'm going to need you to just yell out some answers tonight, so bear with me, all right? This is, believe it or not, supposed to represent an onion. I know, I kind of, with the numbers in there and everything, it really does look like a bullseye, I know. I put the numbers in there just for ease of communication tonight. But this is a relationship onion. And so that's what we're going to talk about this tonight. It's more of an informal study in some ways until we get to the end. And you'll understand what I mean when I get there. So what is it about onions? Layers, thank you. They have layers. Like an ogre has layers, right? You guys are familiar with Shrek, right? We all have layers. We have layers in relationship. And we're going to talk about the different layers of relationship. Now, please understand, and the guys get on me all the time on this, but Brad, it doesn't always go this direction. I understand that. It may not always go just like this. But generally speaking, this is the progression that things are going to take in a relationship, all right? All right, so the outside layer, which is number 6, all right? What do you think, and again, I'm going to need some help tonight, what do you think might be the first thing that you do when you meet somebody? You greet them. That is your answer. Good job. You didn't look at my notes, right? Okay. We greet them. Hi, my name is Brad. What is your name? And we may do a little bit of, a little bit more than that. But that is like the first layer to actually have a relationship. Because we don't always do that with everybody, right? But if we're going to have a relationship, a deep relationship with somebody, we kind of need to know their name. And so we greet them. The beginning, again, of most relationships. And this doesn't take very long. I mean, this would literally take just several seconds, if that. And then we literally move into layer number 5. We're going to spend a lot more time on 1, 2, and 3. Don't worry. But these first 3, we kind of go pretty quick. So layer number 5, what do you think would come right after greeting? And again, this could be just even the same conversation. The weather. You looked at my notes, didn't you? Weather talk, or if you want to say small talk, either one is fine with me. Why would weather talk or small talk be next? What do you think? It's surface. It's easy, right? What's another word that we could use for this kind of talk? Okay. Chit chat. It's safe. This is safe. We can talk about the weather with anybody. Literally, we could be standing in line and somebody could talk to us about the weather that day, right? We may not even know their name yet, but they'll talk about the weather with us. And so it's safe. So, excuse me. How many of you have met somebody in standing in line that they just come up, they start talking to you? My father-in-law is like that. He knows no strangers. And he can talk to anybody about anything. And me, on the other hand, Pastor David, I'll just stand there and I'll let you talk, you know. I don't have to have a conversation. I can just stand there and just be content. But that's number 5. Weather talk, small talk, chit-chat, whatever you want to call it. And it's safe. It's safe for us. So now we go to number 4. What do you think might come next? What kind of conversation? Where are you from? I mean, you could, but, huh? Not quite yet. What do you think? What kind of conversation do you think we could have next? That's still a little too personal, honestly. I mean, yes, we can do that, but, No? Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other guesses? We're just going a little too deep just yet. Age? I'll help you out. If we're talking about the weather, and I say it is, according to my watch, 86 degrees outside, what did I just give to you? Well, I gave you the weather, yes. What about the weather? It's very specific, so I gave you a well, not quite yet. If it's 86 degrees, it's what? A fact. Thank you. Yes. Facts. Again, we're just incrementally moving into this friendship/relationship, and so we talk about facts. Why do we talk about facts? They're safe. They're still safe. Yes. Good job. If I am stating, or if you are stating a fact, what can I not do? You can't argue. It is what it is, right? And so we talk about facts. It's comfortable, yeah, and it's still safe. So, and this, again, this can still be in the very first conversation we have with somebody. All right, so now, these next 3, we're going to go a little deeper with these. No pun intended. But number 3, it's a little bit harder to guess, so I'm going to give you some help here. What is it called when, well, how do I do this? How many of you have watched like football games and you see the UPS commercial? Anybody familiar? Okay, what is like their thing that they talk about on those UPS commercials? What do they do? Huh? Logistics, thank you. What are logistics? Have to yell it out. Movement, moving things. Say that again? Yeah, there you go. For our purposes, in a relationship, logistics is simply making plans. Making plans. So this is another, again, it's a deeper layer in this relationship onion because we don't do this with everybody. So what might be an example of making some plans? Let's have lunch. Let's go to church. Let's get coffee, if you like coffee. I don't, so I don't do coffee. I'll do hot chocolate, maybe tea. But logistics, making plans with somebody. Logistics can be very complicated. Again, in the business world, like UPS, these other corporations that move things, transport things, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of planning to make everything work the way it's supposed to work. And so when we are doing something like this with a friend, with a new friend, again, it's another layer. It's taking a step out of our comfort zone, maybe, to say, hey, would you like to do this? What have I just done? I've put myself out there, literally. And what could they do with that offer? They could reject me. They could say, I'm busy. Say what? I don't like coffee. Let me check my schedule. I'll get back to you. That's not safe, is it? Because we think we might want to get to know this person a little bit better, but we're still not sure if they are feeling the same thing. And so it can be unsafe to do this. But if we want to go deeper in a relationship, this is one of those steps. Okay? So, for some people you meet, greeting them is as far as you're going to go. For some people you meet, talking about the weather or small talk or chit chat, that's as deep as you're going to go with those individuals. And that, I'm not saying that like you're never going to talk to them again, but anytime you do talk to them, that's where it's going to go and that's where it's going to stay. Other people, you may even get into the facts because again, it's still safe, but it's going to take maybe a little bit more of a conversation to talk about the facts. And then we get to logistics, making specific plans to see them again, to meet up again, beyond just seeing them in random places like church. There are many people at church there are many people at church that we will never move beyond greeting with them. There are many people in church that we will never move beyond weather talk with them. There are many people in church that we will never move beyond facts with them. And guess what? It's actually okay. Because we can't go deeper with everybody. We can't. It's just not possible. But we should be doing these things with a lot of people. You know, the circles, they get bigger, right, as they go outward, right? That's kind of representative of how many people we can actually have in these layers, all right? There will always be people in these layers, and that's okay. There are many people that you will never make plans with to see for lunch, for coffee, whatever. We don't have enough time in the day, enough time in the week to do that. But they can still be healthy in the sense that you are not at odds with them, but they will never be very deep relationships, okay? So, if we want healthy, deep relationships, we have to go a little bit deeper. So layer 3, I believe, is a layer that really changes things, helping relationships to start going into the next deeper levels that we're going to talk about. And when we go out of our way to make plans with somebody, what are we saying to them? What do you think? Sorry? I want to know you. Yep. You're interesting. Say it again. It speaks value. I value them. If I say, hey, let's go do something together, that is showing them that I value them as a person. I value them as a friend. It shows intentionality, absolutely. Relationship, I don't know if you hear him, but relationships take work. They take a lot of work. They do. So when I am doing something like logistics, when I'm trying to make plans with somebody, I'm telling them that I'm interested in them as a person, that I want to get to know them a little bit more, that I'm willing to take time out of my schedule, my busy schedule, to meet with them. In other words, I am willing to sacrifice my time, my schedule, to be with them because I could be doing something else, right? So when somebody asks you, hey, can we go to coffee? Hey, can we go to lunch? Can I encourage you not to just brush them off, but actually take them up on it and show them the value that they have as a person? Just saying. So, initially, when you heard the word logistics, it may not have sounded very important, but in reality, it really is. It really is, if we really want to go, again, deeper in relationship. So let's move on to number 2. So we have greeting, weather talk, facts, logistics. What do you think might be next? A little bit louder. What do you think? We've already said it tonight. What would be the next layer, you think, in going deeper with somebody? Say what? Background? Okay, that could be. It's not the word I'm looking for, but details. Okay, good. Family. Telling them some of your story. Okay. So, okay, so we're getting transparent, we're getting vulnerable. Yes, a little bit of both. If I share something with you that's a fact, that's basically irrefutable, right? It can't be argued. But if I share this with you, you could argue it. There we go. Opinions. Opinions. I jokingly say that if you have at least 4 people in a room, you have probably at least 5 different opinions. Maybe more. You never know. Opinions. Why would opinions be just a little bit deeper in the relationship? A little bit louder. It's how I feel. Okay? Mm-hmm. They may disagree with me. It opens up more conversation, absolutely. Or it could shut it down, couldn't it? Unfortunately, we live in a society today that is not open to differing opinions very much. It's just, that's the sad reality. I mean, I don't want to get political, but that's a huge issue right there of political opinions that can divide many people, right? Because some people can think, I just can't even be around somebody that doesn't believe this way that I believe. And it's like, what happened to the ability to have a conversation? What happened to the ability to agree to disagree? But this is what happens when we share our opinion. So, opinions, we don't just share them with anybody, do we? Well, I should say most people. Most people don't just share their opinions with anybody. Some people don't care what you think, right? But that's it, isn't it? We care what people think about us. And so we can be slow to share our opinions on certain things because we're afraid that they would reject that or reject us, right? And so we have to be careful. And this kind of goes back to, I think, what I was talking about with Proverbs chapter 24, verse 26. An honest answer is like a kiss of friendship. If I can't share my honest opinion with someone, I am not going to be able to have a deeper, more meaningful relationship with them. I just can't. I will constantly be thinking about what am I going to say next, or what are they going to say next? What are they going to think about me if I say something that they don't agree with? Now what do I do? I can be second guessing myself, wondering if I should have said anything or not. But you and I, we take a risk. This is huge, people. We take a risk when we share our thoughts, when we share our opinions with somebody else. Why? Because most of us care about what other people think about us, and we want others to like us. We want others to accept us. Also, if I share my opinion about something and the other person doesn't agree, they can make fun of me, or at the extreme, not want to be around me, not want to be my friend. And again, in this day and age, it's becoming harder and harder for people to agree to disagree on some things. And that's sad. It's so sad. Sometimes we get in this mindset that our opinions are actually facts. And they're not. They're just not. But we can treat them as if they were. So, we have to be careful. Sometimes opposing opinions can occur in church. I know that's never happened here, Pastor David. Never. I jokingly say, again, that if you have 4 people in a room, you have at least 5 different opinions. And unfortunately, there's some truth in that. We're not going to agree on everything, are we? All the time. However, we should be able to agree to disagree at times. Now, obviously, there are aspects of faith in God that are non-negotiable, right? They're just non-negotiable. It's not my opinion. It is a fact. It is a truth. It is the absolute truth. Just as one example is, Jesus is the only way to God. That is a fact. That is a truth, the absolute truth. It's not my opinion. And that is something I will fight for. That is something I will stand up for. I am not going to back off from that. But that's not everything that goes on in church, right? There are some things in church that fall into the category of my opinion. Now, I'm going to share some things that I have no idea. I'm hoping these are not the case, okay? But these are things that have happened in churches, right? For example, it could be my opinion that we should have communion every Sunday, Pastor David. Every Sunday, it should be made available for us. Now, is that scriptural? No, it's not. It's my opinion. It's my preference, if you will. But I could be willing to die on that and say, if you don't do this, guess what? I'm out of here. The color of the carpet. Sometimes that can be a real problem because we get stuck on our opinions versus what does God really want us to focus on, And so it's the sad thing is people can get caught up in their opinions, believing that their opinions are the only ones that matter. They're the only ones that hold any weight. And that their opinions should be followed by everybody else, whether that's outside the church or inside the church even. And that's sad. It shouldn't be that way. And when this happens, it can cause severe damage to relationships. Again, outside the church or inside the church. Inside of families, outside of families. Inside a workplace, outside the work. I mean, you get the idea, I think. Believing that our opinions are the only ones that matter is a recipe for disaster. I mean, I really like strawberry ice cream. I think it's one of the best ice creams out there. But you could just say, chocolate's all the way, Well, now what am I going to do with that? Am I going to say, okay, you can have your chocolate, I'll have my strawberry, or forget you, we're not having chocolate or strawberry, we're not going to have anything. That's my opinion. You have something? You want ice cream. Our opinions can lead to misunderstandings and lead to broken relationships. If we're so stuck on it has to be my way or the highway. Again, it doesn't matter what context we're talking about. It can happen anywhere. Now, our opinions matter. They do matter because they're a part of who I am. They're a part of me. But we need to understand that they are also a part of those other people who have differing opinions than us, than me. But to grow in a healthy, deep relationship, I have to be willing to share my opinion. You have to be willing to share your opinion at times if you're wanting to go deeper in a relationship. But always have the understanding that they might disagree. And hopefully, again, if it's something that is just an opinion, again, not a non-negotiable, then I can be okay with them having their own opinion. So, opinions can be like a double-edged sword in a sense, because we need to be able to share them, but we also have to understand that they could potentially hurt us if somebody doesn't agree with them. but we need to be able to share them with others to grow deeper. All right. So number one, the last one. What do you think this one might be? If number two was opinions, what do you think number one could be? Personal? Yep. Such as what? What kind of personal? Your past? Yes. Secrets? Yes. How about my feelings? How do I really feel about something? Not just think about something, but how do I feel about something? This is what we call the core. It is the center of this onion, if you will, the core of the onion. It is the deepest level, the deepest layer that we can go in a relationship. And if I were to guess, I would say that David and Jonathan most likely had this type of relationship. As we read earlier in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 17, and Jonathan made David reaffirm his vow of friendship again, and this is the part, for Jonathan loved David as he loved himself. Jonathan loved David as he loved himself. This goes beyond my opinion. As scary as that can be, and it exposes the deepest part of me, the deepest part of us, the parts that very few people ever get to see. Again, it's a very small circle, isn't it? And this is what I was saying earlier. We can't have this kind of relationship with everybody. It's just not possible. We cannot share our core with everyone. We just can't. We don't have enough emotional currency, if you will, to go this deep with everyone that we meet. So when you and I are willing and able to share our core selves with each other, we call that being in a core-to-core relationship. If I can share my thoughts, my feelings, my hurts, my fears with you, and you are able to share those things with me, that's a core-to-core relationship. That's the deepest relationship that a person can have. Sharing our feelings about things, sharing our emotions is true vulnerability. When I share my feelings, when I share my emotions with you, I open myself up to the possibility that you might use those things against me. Remember, we talked about vulnerability. Is sharing something with you you don't know about me, but you could potentially use it against me. When we start getting into deeper relationships with others, we will do what I call test the waters. And simply this. Now, we can do this with opinions and with the feelings and emotions. I can share something with you and see how you respond. If I share with you something that I feel deeply about, and you reciprocate and share something you feel deeply about, guess what? We can have a core-to-core relationship. But if I share something I care deeply about and you rebuff it or ignore it or make fun of it or whatever, guess what? I'm gonna back off. Now, it may be forever. I may never go to you again and share those deep feelings with you, but I may try again at a later time. Maybe as the relationship progresses, I will be willing to share something again with you and see. I'll test the waters one more time and see how you respond. Again, this is a part of being in a relationship. And guess what? It's not safe. It's not. Because again, all these things that I'm sharing from opinions to my thoughts, my feelings, my hurts. Those are things that you could use against me, and that's not safe. But if I truly want to be in a deeper relationship with you, guess what I have to do? I have to go there. And I have to hope that you will go there as well. So, I will know if it is safe. I will know if you are safe, if you will reciprocate, or if, at the very least, if you will honor what I'm sharing with you, right? Some of you might be thinking of some relationships right now where you've done this, where you've tested the waters with your opinions, or maybe you tested the waters with your feelings, and you were rebuffed. You weren't, it wasn't received well, and you're thinking about that. That's natural for us to do. But it still hurts, doesn't it? It still hurts because we put ourselves out there hoping that they will reciprocate, that they will at least honor what we have to say, how we feel. Some of those people might have simply just not reciprocated again. Some of those people might have actually hurt you with whatever you shared with them. Either way, you learned that it wasn't safe to share those deep thoughts, those deep hurts, those deep feelings with those individuals. Now, that does not mean that those relationships cannot change, because I fully believe that they can. Now, it can take a lot of work and take a lot of time, but they can change. It may take time. It may take them learning things like this to understand, oh, that's what you were trying to do. When you shared that thing with me, you weren't just trying to impose your will or impose your thoughts or your opinions on me. You were actually trying to see what I thought, what I felt. Sometimes, and I think this happens often, sometimes we share something with another person, and because of things that have happened in their past, guess what? They're scared. It's not really about you. It's about what's happened to them before. And so they can be afraid to reciprocate. They can be afraid to say, I agree or I disagree, because of what happened to them previously. They may have been hurt by someone else, and they're afraid to go there with you, even though they may really want to. And you might have to approach them and be direct and tell them that, hey, I noticed that when I shared this with you, you responded this way, or you reacted this way, and I'm not sure exactly why, because I thought things were going pretty well with us as friends. Was it something that I said? Was it something else? And we put ourselves out there again, and we test the waters again to see, will they reciprocate now? Will they be willing to listen to me now? And will they be willing to trust me as I'm trying to trust them? And that can be scary, can't it? It can be very scary. Sometimes, maybe in a marriage relationship, it may take somebody else like me as a therapist coming along and trying to help in the situation. So now we have reached the core of the relationship onion, the feelings, the emotions. And there are some other things as well that we would include inside this core. Now, I don't know if you want to write them on the side there. I didn't give you like a blank or anything to put in there, but there's a few other things. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the ones that we think are pretty important, okay? I've already talked about or mentioned some of them, but inside the core of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, we also have our hopes. Our hopes. Again, we don't talk about our hopes with just anybody because that's something that's personal to me, and I don't want them to use that against me. We talk about our dreams. What are the dreams that I have? What are the dreams that you have? Here's one, our fears. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I take this step forward, if I go for this job opportunity, I'm afraid that I'm not going to get it. So why even bother? Sharing that with somebody else, that's scary. Because they may not encourage us. They may say, yeah, you're right. Don't even try. So we're afraid. We're afraid to bring things up. Our failures. Nobody that I'm aware of likes to talk about their failures. But if I'm going to be in a deeper, healthier relationship with somebody, that's someplace I need to go at times. That's someplace that you and I need to go at times to share, you know what, I failed in this area. And it hurt. But we can also talk about maybe things that we learned from that experience. So our failures. And then our needs. This one, I don't know if it's the hardest one, but it can be really hard to share our needs with somebody else. I need this from you. That's kind of forward, isn't it? What do you mean you need this from me? You're supposed to be talking about what you can do for me, not what I can do for you, right? I mean, that's kind of the mentality that we have in the world today. But in a deeper relationship, I have the freedom to share what I need from you at times. And that can be scary as well. And again, there can be many others. These are all things that can be difficult to talk about, even with a spouse. But when you are able to do so, you can have the healthy, deep relationships with them. I've kind of already said this, but it bears kind of repeating, I guess, that you can only go as deep as the other person is willing to go. You cannot force someone to go deeper than they're willing to go. We just can't. That would make you an unsafe person if you tried to force that on them. You can, however, have meaningful talks about these things. Sharing with them that you want to have a core-to-core relationship, that you want to be able to have these kind of talks, discussions with them. So I want to leave with you some thoughts, some things to think about. The first one, you've probably already been thinking about it, but who is in each of your layers, particularly the 1, 2, and 3? Who do you have in these layers? Do you have any family that would go in 1 or 2 or 3? Any friends? If you have somebody that's in layer 3 and you really want them to be in layer 1, what do you have to do? What do you have to change about how you interact in that relationship? Where do you want them to be on your relationship onion? Because here's the thing. I believe that God wants us to have some core-to-core relationships. We can't have core-to-core with everybody. It's just not possible. But we can have some people in our lives that we can have a core-to-core relationship with. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but I mean, obviously God should be number one, right? But I wonder sometimes how many people don't even go to opinions when they're talking to God. Think about that. Some people may be afraid to share their opinions with God. Of course, He already knows. He already knows what our opinions are, but we may be afraid to share our opinions with Him. I don't know. We may be afraid to share our true feelings, our true emotions with Him. And He should be the first one that we should be able to do this with. And again, you can only go as deep as the other person is willing to go. And you can't force it upon somebody. If you have struggled to have deeper, more meaningful relationships, perhaps there's something from tonight that's spoken to you. Maybe you've realized that you haven't been able to go deeper in relationships because you've been hurt in the past. And there's some fear there of trying to go deeper again. But I hate to tell you this, but that's the nature of relationships, isn't it? When I put myself out there, there's always that potential to be hurt. But there's also the great potential to be loved and accepted also. So I want to encourage you to pray and ask the Holy Spirit to reveal to you where or with whom you can go deeper with. And don't just jump to the core. Remember, incremental. Share a little bit with yourself about yourself with other people. Don't just jump to the middle. Take your time. Find out who you can trust, one layer at a time. So, thank you.
Amen. I would submit to you that it's worth the risk. Healthy, deep relationships are worth pursuing and maintaining. And it does take work. And so I want you to stand. And I would like for you to just take the next few minutes until you're free to go, just putting this into practice. We have relationship with each other, right? Life's all about relationships. And so we're family. So just visit with somebody, encourage somebody. We love you, and we will see you Sunday. You're dismissed.